Hello, my friends. I want to address something today, saying that who you once were is not here anymore. And that's kind of it could be a little bit of a mind twister because if you think about who you were when you were a toddler, a teenager, in whatever way it has progressed, I could say, yeah, I am not that anymore. I'm not him or her anymore. I'm very, very different today. And if I can take it maybe to a little bit of a next level, because in a way, when we are not anymore who we used to be, who we once were, it can still all take place in the matrix. Meaning that no, I'm not a toddler anymore. I'm a grown up, I'm a teenager, I'm an adult, I'm whatever I am. And that's very different. And then all the other stages. But we are still identified with our body, our personality, even if the personality has changed, there is still an identity there that believes that this is who we are. And of course, that is how it's supposed to be. Because while we have been so identified with the matrix, that's the role, those are the roles we've been playing to keep this show, if I may call it that, to keep this show alive. That's really all it is. But when you're really identified with it, it does not look like a show. It looks like well, maybe a nightmare, right? And it's because it really is a dream, but it's a nightmarish dream. So who we once were in the dream, as a dream character, as a part of the matrix, has changed, and now we are this. And so it depends on what level we are looking at it, I would say. Because if we are still completely identified with that matrix or dream characters, like, yeah, we're, more successful, more empowered, more confident, and it is still a dream character. So, in a way, we could say that who you once were is not here anymore. From a matrix point of view, it means that you are actually still who you were, just with a different way of expressing and experiencing yourself, still separate from the divine. Okay. So, what I really wanted to address today is that when we start on our awakening journey, our spiritual journey, then these identities, they keep falling away so that there is something else that is taking its place as a reference point. So it's not that separate sense of self with your name, with your title, your gender, your whatever. That is not, that you start realizing that that is not who you are. You're beginning to realize that there is something much deeper, much bigger, much vaster, expansive, that you resonate more and more with. It's like you can rest back in something other than your separate sense of self. And that is where I would say that is kind of what I really want to address, is that who you once were as the dream character is not here anymore when you start waking up. There might still be expressions through and as it, but inside, you know that that is not who you are, because there is something else that is now taking its place as your experience. can't take its place because it's really who you've always been and always will be, but your attention is now more on that. I think what's going on in the world right now, it's so incredible on a broader, vaster, from a vaster perspective. It is so incredible what's going on. Because this thing about, who you once were is not here anymore, that is so true in many people's experience because you cannot relate to anything going on in the world. And that's why I did do a video recently or a little while ago about, the world. I think it was something like the world that once was is not here anymore. It's something in that extent. You can see the link up here. And and of course, that's including you, right? Because the world is the matrix. We are the matrix. It's all these characters just playing and pretending that they are not already fulfilled, whole, complete. So we are all on a stage pretending. So as soon as the actor goes off the stage, he's not that character anymore. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here, that character that we used to play is not here anymore. And just think about all the ways that we have been identified that has been so challenging and we have been suffering and all the thing about not good enough and comparing ourselves with others, trying to fit in, holding ourselves back, not speaking our truth, being afraid to be who we are. There's all that. That is the character that is very, very liberating to let go of. So that instead there is like a fullness of who you are, of who we are, that can now be experienced more fully because our attention is not out there trying to, make this dream character feel comfortable. And we've all done it. We've all done it for many, many years and lifetimes probably. But there is something that is shifting, and I'm sure you're feeling it too, those old characters, the old world is just not doing it anymore. It feels like it's just fluff, right? For many of us, it's just this fluff. We're like, what is it? Why are these things happening? Why do people create war, for instance, right? Or why are people trying to control us? Why are we staying in relationships where we have to contain ourselves and can't be who we are? Why are we killing each other? I mean, these things become, I know they're already in the mind. It's like, that's crazy. But when all that falls away, it is like the most bizarre thing. At least that's how I'm experiencing it. And it feels more and more unreal because who I used to be is not here anymore. Who I used to be was engaging in that, and was afraid and was uptight and scared and whatever. That whole character, poof, it's disappearing. And I think it might be disappearing for you also. So rejoice because that part of us is not here anymore. Let's do our best to not try and hold on to it. We don't need to spend most of our lives healing that part because there's nothing really to heal. There is enough to heal so that we can let it go. So if our grip is really tight to that character that doesn't really exist and to the world that doesn't really exist except as a concept in the mind, when that starts softening, you can just be yourself more. You don't feel the need to fix it all out here. There's just a flow that moves through now. So instead of trying to fix yourself and all your issues, we've all had those, you can more and more just let it go. You might need to do a lot of work so you can let go. I will never deny that, because that would be bypassing if we didn't do that, right? You can't, if you're like this in the world or in your dream character, you have to do something to soften it. Otherwise, you'll bypass it and it's still going to be there. So do all the work, self-love, as you probably know by now, and feeling the deep longing in your heart. Those are some of the things that I really, really um, they're just real. They really are part of the unhooking, because the holding on is many times that we are not loving ourselves. And that's why we need to change ourselves, right? And we can't just be ourselves because we're not loving ourselves. So the more we bring love to it, the more it can start letting go. And then you will literally slip into the presence of who you are, the stillness, the lack of need to engage out there, the lack of need um, to be somebody. That's also a huge thing. If you start looking around, if this is beginning to be your experience, or maybe it's been for a while, where you just don't feel the need to project yourself out, and, this is what I think, and that is right, and this is wrong, right? That is that separate sense of self that is not really here anymore. As we keep doing the journey, it just dissolves. So that need to project ourselves out there, and with my opinion, and you're right and you're wrong, and that is all that character. It's just going to fall away. And I've heard a number of people say, people who are experiencing this, they say, well, people say I should go and do this and go and do that, right? Because those who are still identified in the matrix, they are still doing all that. So if you're beginning to slip out of that and you do not feel any need to go out there and do something, you can go out there and be something for sure in whatever way. But to go out there and do something with that identity of the separate sense of self is probably just going to add to the matrix, right? So you're not liberating yourself. And because you're not liberating yourself, you keep feeding the matrix. So you keep it alive. So slipping out and learning to just know that it actually is enough just to rest in yourself. And then let yourself be led, be guided, be inspired from within. If nothing is inspiring you for a while, and I went through that and I found it really, really challenging, because I've always been such a doer. So yeah, so you may just have to sit through some discomfort and not let yourself be pulled out again, either by what other people say or what what is left over of that separate sense of self is telling you, you should be doing something. You can't just do nothing, but you actually can. And I feel that because I've stepped out of the matrix to a certain extent, I feel I'm much more, I'm of much more value by just being. So if people get engaged in all kind of, arguments or discussions, there's nothing in me that wants to say anything, because I know they won't hear me because they're so identified. So I can just be still. I can just be present. I can just rest inside and let that ooze out and do whatever it needs to do if anything needs to be done. And maybe some people will be touched by that. I don't know. But when that urge to go out there and do something in the world from a separate sense of self, it's very important to understand the difference. I'm not saying we should all become passive at all. Go out in the world and, connect with people from here. It's very beautiful. It will touch people. But to go out and do it from this one, you're just adding to what you really want to get rid of. And that is the attachment to, being a somebody who has an opinion and who knows what should be done. That's all it is. Nothing wrong with that. But if you don't feel called to be part of that anymore, try it out. Try it out. Take some time where you might feel this urgency that you have to do something. See if it's possible for a moment or maybe for a minute just to not engage in it. Let the urgency be experienced. It's just coming from the matrix. Just experience it. Let yourself feel it. You may need to do that for a while. I do. I can still feel some of my inside that wants to do something other than just what I am doing. And I just sit with it. I'm just not engaging in it anymore. So for some of us, maybe most of us, it can be challenging to go against that momentum of doing. It's very strong, isn't it? So that is my invitation today. And if you feel like you just do not want to go out there and engage in the world in the way most people are, and in the way most people think we all should, just honor what you feel inside, that this is not for you anymore. I guarantee you that there will be a need for many of us who are not doing that, who are bringing a more peaceful, a more present, a more still energy and frequency to the scene by just being. And, we might be surprised to really at some point realize how powerful that is. So if this resonates with you, give it a try. And always, if you need help with any of that, feel free to reach out and set up a self-discovery session with me. And then, in I think 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks, I have my next online gathering. It's the first Tuesday of the month. I think it's May 6th. I'll put the link underneath here. If you want to join in that Zoom gathering called Feel Your Deepest Longing, Find Your Spiritual Calling. That is probably something we will also be addressing that. If the longing is to just be and not do anymore from a separate sense of self, to really learn to trust that and learn to go deep into that feeling of longing. And then we will learn to let that be our guide. Thank you so much for checking in today. I will see you again soon.